Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. Today I'm reviewing Spider-Man Far From Home. This was directed by John Watts and stars Tom Holland, Zendaya, Jake Gyllenhaal and Samuel L. Jackson. And it really follows the events of Avengers Endgame. Spider-Man must step up and take on new threats in a world that has changed forever. It sort of looks at how everyone's trying to cope and come to terms with what transpired during the snap, or the blip as they call it in this particular film, and how that's having an effect on everyone and how everyone's trying to get back to normal after the events of things that have transpired. And it looks at how Peter Parker and Spider-Man's trying to deal with the loss of his friend and mentor and somewhat father figure, Tony Stark. And he's trying to work out his place in the world. Everybody wants Spider-Man to be the next Iron Man, and he doesn't really feel like he can be what these people want him to be. And he feels a bit lost. He sort of wants to put everything on hold. He wants to step away from the Spider-Man sort of world and being Spider-Man, and ultimately just try and live a normal teenage life. Go on holidays with his friends, tell the girl he likes how he feels, and just sort of live a normal life as a 16, 17-year-old kid. But ultimately the universe has other ideas, and he's thrust once again into the superhero role. And him trying to make sense of things and be the hero people want him to be. But also he's ultimately trying to balance his normal life with a superhero life, and the conflicts and troubles and struggles he finds within that. And he's ultimately faced again against another foe that is ultimately a human villain once again, like he had in the first film, which I really liked. And it's him trying to navigate through that and work out that he doesn't need to be another Iron Man. All he needs to be is the first him. And that's sort of what he finds out through this film, with a lot of battles and struggles that he goes through. And the world calls him to be the hero they need, and he ultimately finds a way to be the hero he thinks he can be or wants to be. And this all leads to quite an interesting struggle and a big sort of battle towards the end. Look, firstly, I thought this film was okay. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. It didn't really suck me into the world. I understand what they were doing. They're ultimately showing the aftermath of Endgame and sort of just trying to move on. This is what this film is. It's trying to move on, and people move on who've gone through these extraordinary struggles and trials and trying to, live a normal life once again. So in most part, it was entertaining. And like most films these days, there was things I liked and things I didn't like. So I thought I'd start with the positives with this film. The positives for me are, I think Tom Holland is a really good Spider-Man. I think he's added a whole new level and depth to this character, and he really believes in this character, so we sort of tend to believe in him, and I like that aspect to it. I liked Mysterio. Once he appeared in the film, it became really interesting. I thought he was really great. Jake Gyllenhaal did a fantastic job, I think, of this particular character. And he's a character who's not quite what he seems, and I kind of like that, and Gyllenhaal plays him quite well. It's the first time I've seen Gyllenhaal on screen since Sisters Brothers, that he did quite a while ago, so it's good to see him back in the limelight doing sort of roles like this. And he is probably one of the best things about this film, in my opinion. I think he does a great job, and the character's a really interesting character, and they evolve this character in an interesting way. I didn't really know a lot about Mysterio going in. I knew he was ultimately a villain within the comics, and he was just an actor, who lies a lot, and that's all I really knew about him. So it was interesting to see how they evolved him and brought him to life within this film. I think Zendaya is fantastic as MJ, and I really loved the relationship between MJ and Peter Parker. It's sort of awkward and strange because they are sort of an awkward and strange characters, and I kind of liked that. It really suited the characters that they were. And it wasn't the cliched romantic storyline that you see in so many other films like this. And I kind of liked that aspect to it. I thought the action sequences were really good and the set pieces that were there. I really enjoyed the battle towards the end of the film, because it was really interesting to see Spider-Man just keep getting beaten down and coming back and rising above what he had to go up against. And he didn't have all his gadgets, his web shooters or any of his other gadgets, so he had to improvise. He had to learn to be a hero and improvise within the circumstance and the situation that he found him in. And I really liked that. I liked that he continuously fought back against what was happening, no matter what happened to him, and slowly working out the hero he wants to be and the person he is, and I really like that aspect to it. And some of the humour was okay, I thought. That's all I really liked about it. There wasn't a lot I really connected to. I didn't think it was a brilliant film, and I just felt it could have been a lot better, I guess. And I think part of the reason I didn't like this film as much is I'm getting a bit over superhero movies. I've got a bit of superhero fatigue. I'm sort of at the point I don't really want to watch them anymore. I just feel that we're getting bombarded and saturated by so many superhero movies. I'm getting quite over it, and I think that was part of the reason I didn't like this film as much as I thought I should. But in saying that, it just didn't feel as good. I felt Homecoming was a much better film, even though I wasn't a huge fan of that either. I just thought it dealt with the subject matter a lot better. Now, for the things I didn't like about this film. The first half an hour I hated. I just didn't care. They tried to be funny. There was forced humour within the sequences at the start, which I just didn't care about. I felt no connection to it. I just felt like we needed to move on from the stuff they were talking about. And they were trying to, it just felt like they were recapping what happened in Endgame and the people that died and the people that came back for maybe people who hadn't seen Endgame, which, unless you're living under a rock, I highly doubt no one's ever seen this film. But it sort of was recapping that. And the film didn't really pick up until Mysterio appeared. And that was the first half an hour to 40 minutes. So I didn't really like the start of it that much. There was a forced love story between Ned and Betty, which I didn't really care much about. I didn't really like. I didn't think it added anything to it. And I just didn't do anything for me, ultimately. There's a lot of forced humour. There's known comedians, once again, in this film that try and do funny one-liners and try and make it humorous and stuff. And I'm sort of getting a bit over this. I'm getting a bit sick of these comedians coming into these movies just to add a bit of humour and be the comic relief. I kind of dislike that because they don't really add anything to it, and it frustrates me quite a bit having these characters in here that don't really add to the story, are just there for our supposed amusement. I felt it was a bit cliched and sort of it been done before. It added a little new things, but not much. It just felt like it was rehashing what happened in Homecoming in a way, of him getting these powers, trying to work out who he is and the hero he wants to be. And this is still the same storyline in a lot of ways. And I just didn't connect to it at all. I didn't like that aspect to it. I found some of it boring, and there were some things that they added I just didn't think they needed to. And the after credit scenes added all this stuff that's obviously going to take place within other films that are coming up, such as another Captain Marvel, which I really don't care about. The real thing I felt here is, yes, it is closure for Endgame, and that is sort of 10 years, 11 years of those sort of storylines, but I just feel Spider-Man needs to be its own thing. They need to stop connecting it to everything. Like the Homecoming, you had connecting to Avengers and Iron Man, and I just didn't think we needed that so much. And this one's the same, like it's still a tie-in to the Avenger movies, and I just felt it needs to be its own thing. Iron Man is sprinkled throughout this film, and I know it's because he's died and they're trying to say a farewell, and characters are trying to come to terms with what happened and move on, and I get that. But I'm just sick of seeing Iron Man within the Spider-Man film. Get back to what they were doing before. Like when this sort of Marvel universe began, we were having single movies that weren't really connected. There's little splashes of them through it leading into Avengers. And then film by film, it just kept combining things and more characters and more superheroes in one movie rather than having their own films. I'm kind of interested to see what they do with the next Spider-Man, and hopefully it is its own contained story without any other superheroes or connection to the previous films or the MCU universe, and it becomes its own thing. Final verdict. Look, if you want to see the completion of the Avengers, Infinity War and Endgame storyline, you might enjoy this. If you're a fan of Spider-Man, you'll probably get a lot out of this. If you want a film that's not filled with cliches or stuff that's been rehashed or done before, this is probably not a film for you. Fans of the MCU and the Marvel films will probably get a lot out of this, and if you like the first film, you'll probably like this as well. I'm going to give Spider-Man Far From Home 3 out of 5. I thought it was okay, nothing special. There was stuff I liked, there was stuff I didn't, and I just never felt a real connection to it. Anyway, that's all from me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit subscribe down the bottom. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.